And welcome to today's edition of Dr. Carole's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Well, we have a great show. Something, it's my life, basically. Not the childhood trauma part, but we all have childhood trauma, actually. The show is called How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity. And my guest is the author of a new book called Greater Than Gravity: How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity. Now, I'll introduce you to the author, um, but I just want to say, um, well, first of all, he talks about how, and he's a survivor, not just a survivor of childhood trauma, but also a thriver, and he has put his education as an engineer and his work as an engineer to studying the statistics of childhood, of accidents and all kinds of ways that you can die and how that's related to childhood traumas, which is a very interesting approach. So Michael Menard, he is he was born into a family of 14 children where there was a lot of childhood trauma. This was in Kankakee, Illinois. And he learned that survival required both resilience and innovation. And he has done both. He's vice president of engineering at Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson. He has 14 patents that have been transformed into global manufacturing. He has people like the United Nations, NASA, and Fortune 100 companies, including Coca-Cola and Pfizer, asking for his problem-solving expertise. I guess that's because you had to solve a lot of problems when
I
you were
think
in
so,
your
doctor. I think
traumatic
so.
childhood.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Um, childhood trauma, you're talking to the well, what's that? Talking to the choir. Um,
Yeah.
I'm all about childhood trauma. I don't mean necessarily that I suffered it, although uh, I guess we all have some degree of childhood trauma. Um, I guess the closest thing I can think of right now is my father dying when I was 20, which isn't exactly childhood, but it's close enough. Um, anyhow, I'd like you to start, first of all, start with what life was like, when you were a child and the different kinds of childhood trauma that you suffered
Okay.
and you and your siblings suffered.
Yes. Yeah. It was a wild childhood, and I always thought it was interesting and cool and funny. And I finally wrote my memoir 2 years ago to tell the stories of myself and my family. And most of them, they're quite entertaining and funny. And I had never made a connection between my life and childhood trauma.
Mm.
But I solicited the advice of 18 psychiatrists and psychologists to help me unpack the stories, to make sure I didn't say anything misleading to parents, and to use the book as kind of a reflection. And they all said the same thing to me. Whoa, no, this is not funny. Um, you need the first thing we need to do is to treat you. You've never been treated. You don't understand. And I said, no, that's not why I'm here. So I told the story and 18, 20, 24 stories. And I'll just tell you a bit about the life. 14 children raised in a 900 square foot home below the poverty level.
Yeah.
I had a mother that was an angel, and I had a father that was shaped by his own trauma. So my father had an A score of 9. He died before we could have ever talked about that, but he brought violence into the home. So you take a combination of violence, fear, food insecurity from poverty, neglect, medical. So we all had, out of the 10 ACEs that are known, we all had, depending on who the individual is, 6 or 7. I had two brothers that died early of heroin. I have a handful of brothers and sisters that suffer from mental illness. I have a bunch of them who have metabolic disease that we just thought was life. But when I dug into it and relived these stories, and talked to experts about it, I realized that it was really a tragic childhood. And I found that some of us excel through it, and some of us crumble under the weight. And it's called the paradox of childhood trauma. Nobody really knows why. I have some theories that I put in my book. But when I was 8 years old, I remember saying to myself, "It's all up to you, Mike. It's on you. Nobody's going to help you." And I became self-sufficient at age 8, stealing if I needed food. You have a question, I can see
Yes,
that.
yes, yes. Where were you in these 14? What number were
Number
you?
two, number two.
Uh-huh.
So doctor, first of all, I'm not a mental health expert, so I'm novice at all this, and I'm a little bit insecure when I talk to someone like yourself because I know I'm going to say some things that are just out of ignorance that are wrong. But what I've learned is that I had beautiful attachment with my mother because I was only number two. But the ones who struggled, the ones who died, were birth orders 8, 9, 11. How could she possibly give the child the love and connection that that child needed? So, as I talk to my siblings now, the ones that were born later, they just said they felt invisible and lost. So, that's a form of neglect, unintentional. But then you lay over a tough ass father, a badass father who um, grew up with violence. It's a bad combination.
That was the trauma that you were saying that he had, that he grew up in a violent home, so he produced trauma,
Yes,
violence
yes.
in his home.
We, yeah, we all know that generational trauma is what keeps this horrible monster alive.
Mhm.
And it stopped with me. I have 5 daughters, and I realized I knew enough to realize that's not the way to raise children, that they need to be secure and loved and spoiled. And that's how I raised my 5 daughters. So you say no child really has zero trauma. Well, if you look at classic childhood trauma, my daughters did not have trauma. They had disappointments, they had failures, but that's all part of learning. But the things that leave a mark, that change the chemistry of the body and the chemistry of the brain, that's the tragedy.
Uh-huh. Um, well, I mean, some traumas are worse than others, but all right. I hope your daughters haven't had any. I know you worked really hard to make sure they didn't, but it's just that, yes, you want to call them disappointments, but every child has things that, um, that don't that that feel traumatic for them.
Yes.
Let's put
Yeah,
it that
of
way.
course. Of course.
Um, um, okay, so why don't you well, all right, I have a lot of questions.
That's
Um,
okay. Let them fly.
uh, first of all, when did this book come out?
Well, the book is being launched March 19th.
Yes, that's what I thought. It
Yeah,
hasn't
it's
come
not out
out
yet.
yet.
It's not out
Okay.
yet. Yeah.
Okay. So, but have any of your siblings read it
All
yet?
of them. All of them.
Uh-huh. And
And
what
they validated the facts. I want to make sure that, there was nothing in there that they disagreed with. There were a couple of stories that um, are just, we have to take to our grave. They're just too personal, too awful.
uh-huh.
So those are not in there. So the book says this is not the worst of what we experienced,
Uh-huh.
but it's what we're willing to share.
Uh-huh. Wasn't there one sibling at least who was not happy with you exposing the dirty
Oh,
laundry?
there were a handful of them that basically said, I don't support it. I don't want you to do it. This is our family. This is too personal. And I said, okay. I can't write it if you don't want. But the other siblings kind of ganged up on the ones that didn't want it and convinced them that this would be good for the world. Not
Uh-huh.
just, it's not about our family. We could change the names, but
Mhm.
they all came around very quickly to say, I fully support it. I want to be part of it. And I support you and I applaud you.
Okay, that's good. Um, are you prepared? Have you prepared them? Are you prepared? And I think you would probably be prepared, but have you prepared them did you use the real names?
Yes.
So have you prepared them for, you know, possible fallout, like people who
Yes.
know them?
Yes, I have. They've all been through therapy with my therapist to prepare them for just to make sure they are ready for
Uh-huh.
what could come from it.
So really, this book was supposed to be published 10 years ago, but it took them all that time to get ready.
50 years ago. I'm 74, doctor. So, it's a long time ago. So we had to reconstruct our memories and make sure we
Uh-huh.
all had the same experience.
Okay. Now, is your mother still alive?
She is not. She passed away 15 years ago.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. So, where did you get the idea? When did you get the idea and what made you get the idea
So
to
the
write?
first idea was to write my memoir, which I did, and that is published. So the cat's kind of out of the bag of the stories of the family. But what happened was the response from the world. I only expected to sell a couple of copies to my family and to keep it for my daughters and I have 9 grandchildren, to have it for them the response to my memoir was humbling, overwhelming, shocking that the I was getting thousands of emails a day just coming out of that came from my social media post promoting the book.
Oh, well.
And I thought, what's going on? And they all wanted me to help them. And I can't, I'm not a doctor.
Huh.
And so I would say no, but here's some things I learned that might help you. And I'm sorry, but I realized so I got this group of psychiatrists and social sciences together and found that it's a much bigger problem, doctor, than we realize in this country. And that what I found in my research, remember, I'm an engineer, I solve problems. I devoured 350 peer research reports, connected dots that were never connected before. And here's what I found: the shocking headlines is that it's the number one cause of death, direct cause of death in the United States at 1,400 people dying a day. 511,000 a year. That's more than cancer. That's more than heart attack. That's more than stroke. It's more than car accidents. And it's the number one driver for addiction, incarceration, and suicide. And I have irrefutable data now to prove that. So I became depressed. I became sad for my siblings and for the world, and found that there's 180 million adults who've experienced debilitating childhood trauma. 180 million. And 50 million children are experiencing it right now under our noses, and no one is doing anything about it. It's the number one cause of metabolic disease, and I can explain why.
Okay. Um, how did you, I mean, look, I'm a psychiatrist.
I
I knew
know.
this. This was why I became a psychiatrist. I knew all this, when I was a little girl, or at least when I was a teenager, and I read Freud, and went to study with Anna Freud. So, you know, people do, people do know. I mean, not enough people, and like not people who necessarily are suffering from childhood trauma, do they know what their problem is. But certainly a lot of most psychiatrists and psychologists know.
I disagree, doctor.
Okay,
I
go ahead.
disagree.
Go ahead.
My research, and it's extensive, first of all, says that you and your colleagues, right up to today's university, are not taught about the neurobiology of childhood trauma. You don't know. Therefore, you don't know how to heal it. Now, some do. You probably do. You seem to have a penchant for it. But most therapists, social workers, school counselors, CASA, they have no idea of what happens to the body of a child who's been traumatized. And I can give you a litany now of things that happen chemically in the body with hormonal systems, with the alert chemicals that get flowed through the child's body that doesn't get turned off because it's constantly on alert. Cortisol flows through the body. It destroys mitochondria. It creates mental disorders which manifest themselves into metabolic disease. It's a monster.
Okay. I mean, yes.
Are you buying it, doctor? Does it make
Well, I
sense what I'm
kind of
saying?
know this.
Okay, okay, you're in the minority. Just trust me that you're in the minority.
Okay.
Doctor, if you knew it and they all knew it, they'd be fixing it. There's been no progress. It's gotten worse.
Well, okay. Um, Now are you talking about, in part, are you talking about psychoneuroimmunology?
In part, but mostly I'm talking about the destruction to brain chemistry from birth to age 18 based on the trauma response that rewires the brain for danger. So a child grows up wired for survival, not for growth and love.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, how did you, not having studied in a mental health field, how did you put this together, what you're talking about?
So I am a like an investigative reporter. Just as an example, I saw once I recognized that the line to the women's room in a football stadium was 10 times the length of the men's.
Yes.
And I thought, how could that be? So I researched it for 2 years. I found out women's plumbing is different, especially if you've had babies. So incontinence is prevalent. And I thought, well, those poor women. So I went to work and I created a adult diaper, a special high-tech diaper that solves the problem. I found out that women leak, and when their menstrual period, 40% of all periods, there's some type of leakage. So I invented napkins with wings. They always. So I don't stop. So when I realized the world was suffering, I went to work and I got everything. I got to interview Dr. Folletti. I don't know if that name rings a bell.
Um,
Dr. Folletti is the original author of the ACEs study with the CDC back in 1996. So I
uh,
got to interview him and I got all his data. And then I started putting the pieces together. And I have I'm not better than anybody else, but I have a different mind. I can connect dots that were never connected before. And when I found that cortisol killed mitochondria in the child's brain, I went to brain surgeons and neurologists and found, oh, what does that mean? Oh my God! They don't know? The doctors are talking to themselves. They're not talking to the world. So I devoured. I go underwater. I don't talk to anybody for months on end, researching, and I finally found, oh my God, it is the number one. 85% of all IV addicts have an ACEs score of 4 or higher. It means they've experienced 4 or more before they're 18. So I just got all this together. Then I got mortality data from the World Health Organization, and I cross-referenced that with people's childhood scores, which was available. And so all of this just kind of comes together in my mind to an aha that we have to stop this. This is truly destroying society, and we don't,
okay.
and we normalize it.
Okay. And we need to stop this. We need to take a break right now, but that's all very interesting. And when we come back, you can go into it in greater depth. Um, I'm curious how you were able to get the, like, for example, get the ACE scores and all that, but we'll get into that
Sure,
in the next segment.
sure. Yep.
So again, my guest is Michael Menard. His book is called Greater Than Gravity: How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity. So stay tuned. And welcome back to Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman, having a very interesting discussion with my guest, Michael Menard. His book is called Greater Than Gravity: How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity. And I absolutely agree 100%. I mean, let's put it this way: every patient who I have seen um, for a fair number of years has had childhood trauma.
So you're making my case,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so, and they have all different, they come, they're all different ages, they're all different, come from all different life circumstances, and it's not like
Absolutely.
one. Uh,
Absolutely. Yep.
so yeah, I'm not questioning what you're saying. Um, I mean, I guess I'm just surprised that it's news. So, like, I was, how is it that you were starting to explain, um, how you you found some people with certain kinds of problems, like let's say heroin addiction, and
Yes.
then you got the ACE scores, in other words, the scores of their childhood traumas.
Right.
How
Yep.
where how were you able to get it?
Yeah. So there is a omnibus massive research study that's been peer reviewed for 20 years. It was done in collaboration with Dr. Folletti, who just stumbled upon this, and the CDC. So they did 17,000 people in a healthcare system, all ages. But the difference is these were not poor people. They had medical ability. They had insurance. But they participated. They asked 250,000 people, and 17,000 took the test, and it was exhaustive. And they were interviewed, and they got a database together that started to correlate the number of the 10 types of trauma. They didn't come up with intensity scores. I'm working on that now, but they found that if you had 6 out of the 10, so sexual abuse, physical abuse, a parent that was divorced, right? If you had 6 of those, you will die 27 years too soon, guaranteed. On average, on
You're
average.
talking about the ACE study.
Yeah, the ACEs study in 1998 is the basis for all of my research. And then I went back into rehab centers, and I had these people take the ACEs test,
Yeah,
like last year,
yeah.
30,000 of them. And 97% had 4 or more ACEs. And I think the other 3% were lying
Yeah.
because some don't want to tell the truth. Some are shamed. Some don't remember. But
Right,
it was
right.
overwhelming, the connection between those. And then I dug in with other pieces of research where I would ask a famous MD from Harvard. He wrote the book Brain Energy, where I read the book. I'm reading everything, and it showed that certain types of hormones destroy mitochondria and create disease. So I called him and I got an interview with him. I said, does childhood trauma create? Oh, yeah, it creates floods of. Do you think we could say that? He said, yeah, I've got the report right here.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it proves that that type of brain, I'll call it brain damage, creates pathways to metabolic disease like diabetes, heart disease, cancer that came from directly from childhood trauma. So, doctor, in the book Greater Than Gravity, there's 180 references in that book of these studies. So it's all there if you ever want to dig into it. The thing that I guess I'm just going to respond is that you're a professional. This doesn't surprise you, and you've treated these one at a time. But my mission, my passion is that 1,400 people are dying from this a day. 9 children are being murdered per day by their parents from childhood trauma. 500,000 a year don't have to die. And so, did you ever think it was that pervasive that the damage, the illness, the divorces, the alcoholism?
Yes, yes, I did.
So,
Um,
so I want to stop it. I want to stop it. I want to go upstream and figure out a way. I'll never stop it, but can I reduce it through awareness and prevention? Yes. That's
but
my
now,
thing.
okay, one of the things, but now I saw a brief part of an interview that you did, like 15 minutes of it, just kind of the introduction. But in it, you said that that when you had got these mental health professionals to help you with this book, to look over the book,
Right.
um, that they wanted to do, and I think you said it earlier,
Yeah.
that they wanted to do therapy on you,
They
but
wanted to treat me. Yeah.
right, but you didn't want that.
Well, I should have taken him up on it. But since that time, I've had such deep discussions with mental health, all PhD level, mental health professionals, that I know what my disorders are. I suffer from food insecurity, so I eat too much.
Mhm,
I'm a workaholic because I am not comfortable with silence and my thoughts.
mhm,
So, is there treatment for that? I know there is now,
mhm.
but I don't even call those disorders. It's not affecting my life. I'm self-aware. I have gone through self-care for childhood trauma, and those things are pretty efficacious and pretty easy to do. Um, but there are people who are going mentally, they're going crazy and they don't know why.
Okay, but let me just play devil's advocate here
Sure
for a minute.
enough. Yeah.
If you, I believe you that you are very sincere about this, and in fact, you started an organization, and we'll get to that.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but you are kind of what's the you are kind of a walking um a walking oh what's a good word uh like you
Walking case study.
well a case study but
Yeah.
like walking contradiction to
No,
what
not
you're
at all.
to what
No.
you're trying to say um because people who have childhood traumas, of course those who have more serious traumas, I mean, they need therapy. And so by you saying, even though you're admitting you have, some of the things, some effects from the trauma, by you not getting your own therapy, that is telling these people that they don't need therapy.
No,
Because
not
look
at
at
all.
you.
Not at all. Let me respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand exactly what you're saying. Remember, I talked about the paradox of childhood trauma?
Mm-hmm.
So, same DNA, 14 kids. Two of them couldn't bear the pressure of the childhood trauma and turned to drugs. That's my diagnosis. I didn't. My father would beat us. And when I was 12 years old, I woke my father up in the middle of the night and I was holding a ball bat. And I said, if you ever hit me again, I will break your head open with this ball bat. Never touch me again. And he didn't. I should have said, if you ever touch my siblings, but I was just protecting myself. So,
Mm-hmm.
doctor, here's a reality that's also in the book. We are born, we don't know why yet, but we were born with different levels of resilience and grit. I was born with a lot of it. This stuff that happened to me, it rolled right off my back, but it crushed half of my siblings. So I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know what percentage are badasses like me and go through life very successful, but I don't need therapy to thrive in life. I don't need it.
Wait a second. Okay, yes, you're very successful. You have all these jobs. There are all these people, patents, and big companies calling for your advice or expert problem solving expertise. That's great. But to say that you are a workaholic and a food, what did you call it? A food what?
I have food insecurity because I
Insecurity, right.
starved as a child.
Right. Okay, and you said that that has made you obese, which makes sense.
Not too
Uh,
bad, but I'm obese. Yeah.
as you put something into your mouth, candy into your mouth.
The pop. Yeah.
um, those things could, food that would be helpful to maintain your life longer. The fatter we are, that I'm not saying you're fat. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm
I'm
with you.
saying it's better not to be obese. It's better not to have it's better to be in better shape. And then a workaholic, um, I'm a workaholic too. There are lots of reasons for why people are that way, but certainly it takes time away. It doesn't allow you to enjoy, um, for example, all your five daughters as much if you're spending all that time working. So
Right.
you are creating childhood trauma for them. Um,
You're adults. They're adults.
Oh, now they're adults. Oh,
They're
so you didn't,
adults.
you
I
weren't a
was an awesome
workaholic.
father. I
You,
was an
you,
awesome father. Yeah, I was an
okay.
awesome father.
Okay. But I'm just saying, I think it would make your points better if you walked your talk, like if you okay, it would make the point better that people who have um uh too many aces, too many childhood traumas or too severe childhood traumas, that the answer to that, besides getting parents to not be traumatic towards their kids, the answer to that is therapy. And yet you have not chosen that path.
Well, yeah, I can see the dilemma there in the argument, but I'll tell you a couple of things. I'm not going to get therapy. So I understand the disconnect, but I'm trying to wake up the world to that if you are having trouble getting out of bed because of depression, if you're losing jobs because of alcoholism, or you're losing your life, you might want to look under the hood to see what could have caused that, because only then, if you're an addict, going through traditional rehab is not going to help you. It doesn't
Right.
work. It's only
Because
10% successful.
yes, because they don't get to the root of the
They don't
problem.
get to the root of it. So
Yes.
why are all these clinics not even understanding that and understanding you've got to heal the wound in the mind before you can do anything else?
Yes.
So I think, Doctor, to kind of close off on that, I'm not that bad off. The numbers fall, they fell in my favor, but my passion now is trying to help wake up and maybe save the lives of people so that they understand why. And then let my organization go upstream and begin the prevention
Okay.
game.
All right. Let's wait a minute. Where are we with okay. Um where let's talk about your organization. We can start talking about that. Tell us about it.
So, when I was writing the Greater Than Gravity book, I realized it's not enough to talk about a problem if you're not going to solve the problem.
Right.
So I created an organization called UACT, United Against Childhood Trauma. I have a faculty on that organization made up of PhD childhood trauma experts. The chairman of my UACT is Dr. Schiraldi. He's got 14 books on childhood trauma. He was a professor for 30 years. He has an office in the Pentagon that teaches recovery from PTSD. He's a rock star. And he reached out to me and said, "Let me help you end this. I
Oh,
know how to end this." So I created this organization, and now we're building a global LMS, that's learning management system, that'll handle up to 100,000 students a month. And we're creating certifications for psychiatrists. So you can be certified in trauma responsive care, not trauma informed care. Informed is about knowing, responsive is about doing. So the whole purpose for UACT is to create trauma responsive care for teachers, for church leaders, because the people are bleeding in the pews. They're there for salvation and grace and redemption, but you can't pray your way out of a brain injury. You can't pray your way out of a broken bone. You can, there are miracles. I'm a Christian, but it takes more than prayer. So we got people that are filling the churches. 70% of them are suffering and they don't know why. And they think God's not answering their questions. And oh, by the way, is there even a God if he allows these bad things to happen? Why did God let my father beat my siblings? Why did God let me go hungry for 10 years? It's big questions. So back to UACT. We're creating an academy where in June of 2026, we'll open the academy and you'll be able to get awareness, healing, and prevention from the world's experts in childhood trauma. Not me. I'm an engineer. But you're going to go in and you're going to be able to be a certified trauma responsive caregiver. And we're going to wake up the world through awareness and then teach them what interventions do heal And how do we stop this with the parents? All education and support.
Well, so wait. So will 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 the teachers or the therapists be learning like how to do therapy for these childhood
No.
traumas?
Well, all depends. If no, they will not. We if there's two types of healing. There's healing that can come from awareness and self-care, particularly if you have someone in your life who will listen and who loves you. Okay, to take it away from being a secret. So there's things you can do for self-care, exercise, get enough sleep, eat a nutritious diet. Those things rebuild the mitochondria. They'll make you healthy again. So with the teachers, we're not going to teach the teachers how to heal the students. We're going to teach the teachers how to manage the classroom when 70% of the children are suffering and acting out. They don't know how to act. So what do the teachers don't know what to do. They send them to the principal. The principal puts them in the corner, shames them further, makes it all worse. Imagine a world where the school counselor knows how to address the issues and to start a healing path or reference the child to a professional if it's that bad.
Okay. But a professional who has learned, like
A,
I'm
a,
confused as to what first of all, I know you have done the self-care model route.
yes,
But
yep.
that only goes so far. But the therapist will be learning how to do what
So,
to address the trauma.
not you, but about 95% of all master's level healers, therapists, right? People that can call themselves therapists, they went to university, they got a degree. They know nothing. They know nothing about what they turn to as cognitive behavior therapy.
Mhm.
Talking therapy does not heal brain wounds. So it doesn't work. So
I
we're
wait a minute.
failing.
Wait a minute. Okay, no, now we're going over the edge here. um I agree that CBT and these quickie kinds of things don't really work because it's just sort of it's kind of pretend therapy. But the only therapy that really works for childhood trauma is talk therapy, psychoanalytically oriented talk therapy, not DBT where you get
I,
homework
I,
and you
I know
and
you're not, I know you're the host and I know you're the PhD,
no, I'm an
but,
MD.
oh,
I'm a
an MD.
psychiatrist.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I know you're highly educated, but I'm going to name some therapies that are proven highly efficacious for childhood recovery. Do you know what ART is? ART?
Well, obviously you don't mean art like you see in a museum.
No, no. Do you know what EMDR is?
Yes, of course.
Okay, well, you didn't say of course to art, and art
Well,
is
I do,
advanced EMDR. So I didn't invent them, I didn't create them, but this panel of 18 psychiatrists have said these are the therapies that are working. Cognitive behavior does not. And
I
so
agree with the cognitive behavior does not. Yes, and EMDR. Yes, I sometimes refer people who I'm doing therapy with to someone. I don't do EMDR, so sometimes if it's a specific kind of trauma, not every trauma, not generally childhood
I
traumas, to be
agree.
honest.
Well,
Um,
no, I disagree. Childhood trauma is in there. All depends on the severity.
but anyhow, I mean that is one of the tools that can work. But so I'm confused as to what you are teaching them besides EMDR.
Yeah, I'm not teaching them. So
Yes, right.
this
Yes.
faculty is
What are they
teaching.
teaching?
They're teaching the first step in treating childhood trauma is to reassemble the
Oh,
memory.
okay. Wait. Let's not start on the first step because I just got the sign that we actually have to take a
Okay.
break. When we come back, we will start with the first step. This is very interesting. Um, okay, so we need to take a break. My guest is Michael Menard. His book is Greater Than Gravity: How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity. And as I'll just say in the next segment that, you know, well, I'll leave it for this next segment. All right, so stay tuned. Well, I'm glad that you stayed with us. It's just getting more and more interesting. um, you're watching Dr. Carol's Couch or listening to Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. My guest is Michael Menard. His book is Greater Than Gravity: How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity. And we've come to a point, my main critique, should I say, I guess, is that he is an example, a bad example of what it is that he's trying to promote. Um, because here he's saying he did it on his own, self-healing. I'm all for doing things for self-healing, for in general, like healthy things, exercise and good food, and meditation, and all these good stuff. Um, but as far as childhood trauma, uh, I have never seen a childhood trauma. Let's put it this way. We're talking about neglect, abuse, um, uh, parents dying, um, things like that. I've never come across a childhood trauma that that could be cured by meditation alone, or healthy food alone, or self-care alone. um that's why, and I feel very strongly about this. As I mentioned earlier, I studied with Anna Freud. I totally believe in psychoanalysis. Now, not everyone has the money or the time to go through psychoanalysis. I'm not saying that, but you can do psychoanalytically oriented psychotherapy, which means it could be like just once a week. But you have to, in this psychoanalytically oriented psychotherapy, you are getting, the person may come in for all kinds of reasons. They don't usually come in and say, I had childhood trauma. They say, I just got fired, or I'm having an argument with my boss, or my husband and I aren't getting along, or
That's
I'm
life.
very depressed.
That's life.
um Wait a minute. um no, actually, that was mine. You mean the phone?
Yes.
I didn't, no, actually, it was mine.
Okay.
Maybe it was yours too. Anyway, um, so like whatever their current problem is, I fairly quickly get them to relate it. I mean, it takes, well, I shouldn't say fairly quickly. I mean, in my head, am thinking, huh, I, I bet you this happened as a child, because by now, I've seen so many patients.
Sure.
I was chief resident at Bellevue, NYU Bellevue, and the best place in the world to learn how to become a psychiatrist, because you see everything. Um, and and so I have never um so after seeing all these patients, all different kinds of patients, I it's easy for me to know what kind of childhood traumas they had that led to them having these problems today as an adult. In fact, I've written I've written a number of books, but one of them that I'm just thinking of right now because of the self-care thing, I wrote a book for children called, parents and teachers with the children, called Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Trauma, a time of terror.
Oh,
Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror. And so of course, there's a whole thing that I talk about for the parents and the teachers, what they can do to help the kids be more resilient. And for the kids, there are 10 things that the kids can do. And basically it's self-care, and it's um, you know, um, looking at what's inside the person. Don't just uh don't be don't bully kids, or don't um decide you don't want to be a friend to a kid because of what they look like, all kinds of things like that. Now, of course, that's for kids, and that's um for the trauma of, like, a trauma of terrorism, not a trauma of well, I mean, it is a childhood trauma these days, but I mean, it's not the kind of trauma that we think of as being an acute. um but I mean, it's not like, abuse and so on. So um so I do see that there, my point in telling that story is that I do see value in these self-help things. But if it's really a child um with trauma, with childhood traumas, abuse, neglect, those kinds of things, um the only way, doing um doing these DBT and um taking care of
EMDR,
life self-care.
right?
Um, you can tell I don't use the word often. The words self-care. Um, but those are kind of, I mean, for a lot of people, that's all that they can have access to.
That's right.
That's different from saying that the actual cure or to get to the childhood trauma at a deeper level, you do have to do therapy that looks at childhood, that talks about these things that happened during their childhood. I'm also a forensic psychiatrist. So, in civil cases and criminal cases. So when I'm analyzing someone, either a defendant in a murder case or just some kind of a civil case, sexual harassment or whatever, um, I'm trying, I always get to what makes this person tick. Like, why is this person the way they are? Um, so that I can explain that to a jury. And it's different. Cases I do therapy, like the child abuse cases from the priests, in Los Angeles. I had
Horrible. Yeah.
cases in that. So
Mhm.
so and I was doing therapy with them. Um, so in order for a jury in that kind of example to understand what makes this person tick, you have to go back to all these childhood traumas and trace it throughout their life and how this affected them to be this way and that way. And you know so so go ahead. So take it
Let
from
me
here. I
let
don't mean
me
to
try to
monopolize the
yeah,
conversation.
let me try to make more sense of it. It- it's here's the premise. The premise when you say talking therapy, I said it doesn't work. You said yeah, it does. Yes, of course, we're both right. But here's the reality is that based on this panel of experts that I've enlisted, and by the way, I pay, right? I pay because I'm taking their time and they have a heart for this. They have come to an agreement, the 18 of them, that about 75% of the unhappiness or the disorders that are coming from childhood trauma can actually be resolved, never cured. It can be resolved, and so someone can move on to thriving in life. 75% of them by not, they don't need to see a psychiatrist or a therapist for that. They just need some very simple things. And the first thing is the ability to tell their story to someone who will listen and cares.
Yes.
That delivers about 50% of the healing as soon as they and that someone like you or me, you're a professional, I'm not, can say to them some things that are true. This is not your fault. That's number one. Number two, you're not alone. There's 180 million people walking around that are suffering just like you. You think you're the only one, you're not. Three, here's some things that we know can help you. But if you continue to struggle, even after this talk with a therapist or with a friend, here's some therapies that work. Here's some therapies that we know are efficacious and safe. They won't do any harm. And are you willing? And one of the things I was getting to is that the science now shows that when a child experiences trauma, the memory gets fragmented into different parts of the brain because
Mhm.
it can't handle it. It doesn't know where to put it. A professional knows how to reassemble those pieces
Right.
through discussion and through awarenesses and exercises where they can say, oh yeah, now I remember. So they can first, you can't put the trauma where it belongs in your brain until you can reassemble it. And this is all stuff that most people, and I find most therapists have no understanding of. And they use the same, if you know, the deal is if all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Right.
And my point is the world is suffering. We are disintegrating spiritually, socially, mentally, and physically. We
Yes.
are we spent last year $14 trillion as the cost of childhood trauma in all of the things that add up. 2 trillion of it is losses at workplace because of poor performance. It's
Mhm.
a massive problem that maybe someone with your education understands that it's real, but does someone like you understand the degree of the problem to our society?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? That's the big question. If you knew, you have a responsibility to do something other than heal one person at a time.
Well, yes, I do actually.
Okay. So
I,
we agree.
I mean, by my books and by my media appearances and where I've
Well, there you go. There you
areas
go.
where I
Yeah.
try to
Yeah. How
explain
many people
medical.
are doing that though, doctor? How many people have the ability
Well,
to do
let me
that?
ask you a question though. In
Yeah.
your 18 people,
Yes.
faculty,
Yes.
or as you were writing the book and the people that were helping you with that,
Yes. Yeah.
did you have any psychoanalysts?
I had a bunch of them. I had a bunch of them. I had psychoanalysts. Yeah. I had a few people who lived and died by it. And they discuss amongst themselves. I'm not the expert.
No, but I mean, because they would tell you what I'm telling you. Both that you should be getting therapy yourself in order to make this very more convincing.
But doctor, you think I could be any better? Look at me. Look at that wallpaper.
I love the wallpaper. I really do.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we could all be better,
I
right?
understand, of course. I understand. I understand. I understand the what's the right word? Disconnection with some of the things I'm saying. I get it. I can't argue with you when you say I'm a bad example of, but take that away. Let's change the table. Let's say that I make up some shit, sorry, some stuff about me being through therapy and succeeding. Is that going to make my story better?
Well, only if it's true.
Of
I'm not
course.
saying you should lie,
I
but
know that, but I'm just saying it doesn't change anything because
well, it
I'm
kind of
being the
does because you
microphone.
would be a little different.
Yeah, I'd
First of
probably
all,
be
you
worse.
wouldn't be telling people don't get
I'd
therapy.
be worse. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I am not promoting or discouraging therapy. I'm saying there's a place for it. Absolutely. But you know how many therapists there are in the United States, doctor?
No, I don't know.
250,000. And there's 180
And
million people.
90% of them don't know what the hell they're talking about.
You agree?
Yes, I agree with you on that.
Well, there's the
Absolutely.
problem.
The,
There's the problem.
and the thing with the nail and the hammer, absolutely. They think they're doing. Yes, this is. I am
Well,
totally
let's train
with you
them.
on that.
Let's send them to UACT so they get the basic training by a panel of educators they can spend 7 hours over a month's time and know more than they ever learned in medical school about childhood trauma.
I don't have a problem with that. I think that's great. I just I just think that there should be a part of that, a part of you, a part of the
System,
faculty, the
right?
teachings about psychoanalytically oriented psychotherapy if for people who want to get to the real bottom, the real root. If they okay, here's the way of putting it. If they have like what you have, the resilience and the survivor gene, the something in your brain that is pushing you to survive. If people have that, then they could benefit all the more from looking at their childhood trauma from a deeper way.
I agree. I agree. I agree. But how do we even wake them up to the reality that this is why they're suffering?
Yes, yes.
Because it's
No, I
awareness.
think so where can people, we're getting towards the end. Um, tell people, I know I have here, tell people where to go.
Okay,
Tell people
there's
the
two
group.
places there's two
Yes, go
places to
ahead.
go. You can
Yeah.
go to UACT's website, which is UACTNOW. So it's uactnow.com. And there's a lot of stuff there, just introduction because we're just getting started. So the number one thing I want you to do is to join the organization. It doesn't cost anything, but connect with us so that we can start. We do a weekly newsletter. Connect so we can start the education. That's number one. Number two, go to Michael J. Menard. That's my name. Michael J. Menard.com. That's my personal website. That's my author website. We're going to tell you everything that's coming. And think about somebody in your life that this could help in addition to yourself. Think about it. Think about, does something not feel right? I'm not saying run to therapy, but try to find out maybe is it anything to do with what happened to you or what your childhood was like? Maybe, maybe not. But, there's a lot of destruction going on. 200 people are dying a day from drug overdoses.
Yes,
How
yeah.
many of it could have been saved if they?
Like a good example of this is Nick Reiner. You know, he went to all the
Perfect,
18
perfect,
rehabs, and
perfect.
obviously they did not do the trick. Um, and also, I have this campaign, so to speak. I mean, I mention it a lot in the media, um, where I talk about psychiatrists who have become pill pushers. Psychiatrists don't do therapy anymore because
Uh,
insurance companies stop paying
I'm with you.
a fair
Yep,
fee for
yep,
therapy.
yep,
So
yep.
if they see 8 people a day, 8 hours a day, 8 people an hour of therapy, they're not going to be able to pay their mortgage if they are dependent upon insurance. So
Yeah,
yes. Well, okay, Michael Menard. Thank jmenard.com.
yeah.
Um, thank you very much. This has been very interesting. I certainly do wish you luck with this.
Thank you.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
it is better than just sitting around and saying, yes, this is a big problem. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, doctor. You're very
Okay.
interesting. You're very interesting.
And thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Dr. Carol's Couch, and I'm your psychiatrist host.